G'day and welcome to the Josh Wade Show. My name's Josh Wade. Thanks to The Siege for helping us out with the theme song. As per usual, thank you to our Patreon group. We love you. Thanks for everyone for supporting the show, helping us out, helping us create this. If you want to join our private Facebook group, you can. We do a live stream in there every week. There's a bunch of great people in there that are all helping each other out. They're all very smart in all different sectors of society. Join a great group. If you want to do that, all you got to do is simply donate to the Patreon, become a part of the group. Fuck, can't get me words. Fuck me in the asshole. Ross.
That's kinky.
It is, isn't it, Ross,
yeah,
mate?
I wouldn't want to do that.
Right, well, that's the end of the podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. Ross, thanks for coming on, mate. Now, interesting. This is, again, I don't know anything really about you. Zach, as I said, he works here at the company. He's organised all this for me, so this is great. Thanks, Zach. Hashtag fuck Zach. Ross, you're 72 years old, mate.
Yes.
You look about 11, which is great. Looking very, very fine. Now, you've come on because you wanted to talk essentially about a few things, which is going to lead on to what I'm guessing, because you touched on a few things before when we met, about gambling, online gambling. You're 72 years old, and the Queensland government, was it?
The federal government.
The federal government has just outlawed online, or it wants to outlaw online
Has
gambling.
outlawed. Has outlawed
okay,
online.
You explain it then.
Some months ago, about 6 months ago now, or about 12 months ago, the federal government passed a legislation to outlaw online poker. Took about 6 months to come into effect, and it came into effect earlier this year.
Yep.
So they based that on a whole lot of shit. They manipulate. Statistics can be manipulated. Mm-hmm. One of the things I saw at the time was they took they interviewed a host of poker players and said, "Tell me, what other things do you gamble on?" And poker players, 40% of poker players said they gambled on horses as well. Mm-hmm. Right, 60% of poker players probably wouldn't gamble on other things because they're mathematicians. Then they went to the horse punters and they asked 100 horse punters what else did they gamble on, and only 10% said they gambled on poker. Mm-hmm. Right, so they managed to twist that into that poker players had more gambling problems because 40% of them punted on horses, then horse punters had poker problems because only 10%.
Right.
And they twisted that into a justification that online poker players had more gambling problems than horse punters.
Right.
Just a governmental twist to suit a point, which was that they weren't getting tax out of online poker.
Yep. So today we're going to be talking about, like I said, a few things. We're starting out on the gambling thing, but it's going to go into a lot of other things. You've got a fascinating life story, which I'm keen to hear.
Yep.
But you said something interesting when we met at the start, which was at 17 years old, you were able to go to war for a war that we weren't meant to be in.
Yep.
And the government said that was the right thing for you to do, even though that was against your beliefs.
Yes.
And the issue that you have now is at 72 years old, as a person that's lived your entire life, you can't play poker in your own house. You can't play poker online. They've outlawed something which is literally harmless. Really, obviously, people have gambling problems, but in the sense of having a gun pointed at you, there's a massive fucking difference there. So where's the gripe?
In 2015, there were 230,000 online poker, cash game poker players, online and in casinos, illegal and otherwise. Plus probably another twice that playing poker. Mm-hmm. So say around about 500,000 people, give or take, playing active poker every week in Australia. The powers that be decided that they could tell people that wasn't right. You can't do that anymore. What did they think was going to happen? Did they think 500,000 people were just going to stop doing a thing they loved? When they outlawed it. So they've created a whole undertone of, illegal games, home games, which has just magnified since then, because those poker players have had to find a way to play poker. The casinos have clearly said, we don't want you, because poker players traditionally don't gamble on the other games in casinos. The casinos rip the poker players off. They charge them an inordinately expensive rate to sit and provide them with a dealer and a table, which is about all they do. They don't even give you free drinks like some worldwide casinos do. Yeah. So it's a pretty unhealthy state for poker. because it still flourishes,
Yep.
but it flourishes illegally.
Right. So do you think, obviously, because there's obviously such a big market there of people doing it, they've obviously outlawed it. They can make a bit of money out of it as well by, putting the thing in sort of the underbelly of society. Why poker? Because for me, I look at poker just as a person that doesn't really gamble at all, and I see it as probably a much more classier way of gambling than the horses or pokies. Why poker for you in general?
I love the math. I love the math. I was also a backgammon player. I played a lot of professional backgammon over the years, which is also purely mathematical. And I just love the mathematics of poker, the pot sizing, the bet sizing, the range of hands that play, in certain size pots.
Yep.
It's just a mathematical puzzle. So a whole 8-hour session of poker is a whole 8-hour session of mathematical problems served in small doses.
So it's stimulating from an intellectual standpoint, and then you throw money into the equation, which then gives it obviously that adrenaline of fuck, I'm going to win or lose. Sort
and
of
you
thing.
try and get your money in good. Like if you're mathematically pure, theoretically you should never get your money into a pot bad. I mean, you do because you make mistakes, but the theory of poker is only get your money in good.
Right.
Then luck plays its role.
Right. Yeah. Right. So where did this come from then? Take me back. Where were you born?
I was born in a little country town on the outskirts of Sydney called Campbelltown.
Campbelltown, yep.
Which in those days had less than 2,000 people. It's now a magnified suburb of outer Western Sydney.
Yep.
And as I was one of 11 boys in the senior year of my school, there were only 11 kids in the town that went through school from kindergarten through to final form with me.
Yep. That would have been a big thing back then, finishing school.
Yeah, it was kind of a big thing,
Yeah.
and it was a big thing for a little country town to to go through a class where the 11 kids in the senior class made up the cricket team, the football team, the tennis team, the golf team.
Yeah.
And then you ran out of things to do.
Right.
So it was pretty easy to go to the local illegal poker game and play poker from the age of about 16.
Right. So that was something that you were into way back then. Okay.
Yeah.
So what else was sort of, what were you doing back then? Did you have a job, or what was the 16, 17-year-old you aspiring to be? Where did you want to be in life? What were the big dreams?
I had no idea. I just knew I needed to get out of Campbelltown.
Right.
My father gave me a good work ethic. I was the local chemist delivery boy. I sold newspapers at the station. Every morning the people would run in to catch the train. Reminiscing, I used to sell papers for tuppence, a newspaper for 2 pennies.
Yep.
And a lot of the people, a lot of the businessmen that were catching the train into the city to work would run by and throw threepence in the hat, and I'd get to keep the penny.
Right. Yep.
Right. And one week Fairfax changed the price of papers from tuppence to threepence, and I stopped selling papers because I wasn't getting the penny out of every paper I sold. And the bloke that was paying me wasn't paying me enough.
No, dogs.
So they just knocked my tips in one hit, bang.
Straight away.
So I knew I had to make money. I knew I had to get out from the little country town thing. And the Navy finished up being my way out. That's I joined the Navy to get out of the town.
Yep.
And the Navy catchphrase of the day was join the Navy and see the world. So by the time I was 20, I'd seen the world. Not all of it, but I'd seen some good parts of it.
Right, okay.
So that worked, but that included involvement in places where we probably shouldn't have been.
So tell me about that, because I know there's going to be people that are watching this that are fascinated by that. Was it Vietnam?
No, it was between Malaysia and Vietnam, and I was actually involved in what, by today's terminology, what would be called a peacekeeping corps. We were in the Malaysian... Singapore had only been released from England in 1956.
Yep.
I'm talking 1963. And Malaysia, through the Penang, was trying to separate from Britain and follow, or Malaysia was trying to separate through Penang and release like Singapore. So there was a lot of uprising. There were a lot of little uprisings between the Sikhs and the various powers that be in Malaysia. And the Australian forces were sent over there as in today's parlance, a peacekeeping force. We were called the Southeast Asian Strategic Reserve.
Right. And what did that entail?
That entailed pointing loaded guns at people trying to go the wrong way, trying to get troops in by water. We would, in the Navy, we'd pull up alongside a little sampan, full of blokes with guns, and we'd point big guns at them, and they'd point little guns at us, and we'd say, lay down your arms, and they'd all just stand there with a loaded gun pointing at us.
Right.
Yeah,
So you were, I mean, I don't know if this is the best way to put it, but you were doing someone else's dirty work in the sense of they had an agenda of where they wanted the country to go and how it was going to split, and you guys were peacekeeping and making sure that they went that way not that way.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So how old were you when you started to sort of figure out that? Because I mean, you're young back then, and you just you're doing what you're told, and you've got that good work ethic, and it's all just churning over. When did you start to question things a little bit and go, "Fuck, there's a few things that aren't adding up here"?
When I got kicked out of the Navy, because I started to question things. I'd only been in the Navy for 3.5 years, and I had some major issues, and I started to question discipline. False or fake discipline.
Yeah.
Like things that you would do in the Navy, which would get you, dramatic punishments would in Civvy Street would be nothing more than a smack on the wrist from your employer for being late. Like silly things.
What sort of what's hard discipline back then?
To a depth of being put in a cell for doing a few things wrong on a particular event. Like getting charged with numerous charges over what in Civvy Street would be an incident, and yet in the Navy, like the ultimate demise of me in the Navy was returning on board improperly dressed, late, and intoxicated. Which and I won't detail them, but they managed to turn that into 19 charges, and they kicked me out of the Navy. They gave me a thing called. There was two ways you could get out by being a bad boy. You could get a thing called an unfit for the rating of, which was called an UFTRO, or you could get a snarler, SNLR, which was services no longer required, and they just booted you out.
Right.
And I got a snarler for speaking my mind.
Right.
And calling it silly. And I got out, and that's when I questioned it, and that's when I moved on to a commercial career of realising that I could do better things with my time and become a free spirit and make money.
So you've left, or you've been kicked out of the Navy.
Been kicked out of the Navy.
Where did you go on after that then? Where did your commercial career lead you?
Well, I was looking for work, obviously. I couldn't go home to Mum and Dad because Dad and I had separated completely by then. So I saw an ad in the paper that said man wanted to assist newly appointed manager. And I got a job selling encyclopedias door to door. And that was what I had to do to assist the newly appointed manager, was carry a kid out and make him some money and myself good money. Yeah. So I finished up, I joined a company called P.F. Collier's Encyclopedia. And I finished up, I stayed 8 years. I had a few little breaks in the time, but I stayed 8 years with that company and worked my way from a raw rookie to regional manager for Australia, and running a whole bag of kids and offices in every state as a regional manager, and made lots and lots of money, and basically pissed it up against a wall. Sex and drugs and rock and roll was. I was born in 1946, and like when I was 18, this thing called sex and drugs and rock and roll just happened, and it was a thing. Right. So as a entrepreneurial young bloke making heaps of money, nice house, nice cars, chase the girls, and spend lots and lots of money.
Yep. So
and play lots and lots of poker.
Right. So you're having fun. You got a good job.
Yep.
You're out of the Navy. You've done. You've been slapped on the wrist. You've been thrown about. So you're calloused up now. You've got a bit of fucking
tough.
Grit about you.
Yeah, I'm tough.
Right. So you can deal with the emotions of the real world as such. Sex, drugs, rock and rolls come along.
Yeah.
What was your... I think we all remember that moment. I mean, to be absolutely honest, I've never done any other drug but weed. And I smoked weed and I was like, oh, this is fun. I could probably only ever do that and drink alcohol. Other than that, I just fucking...
Right.
I would hate to know how I'd be on cocaine, only because I've just got such an addictive nature that I'd fucking love it so much that when I like something, I grab it and I fucking run with it real farther than anyone else. But for you,
good.
What was your... I mean, the cocaine was probably pure back then.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And the shit you get today is just nothing like it.
Yeah.
It's all powder today.
What was that what was that moment? What was the thing? Was it cocaine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it?
Just beautiful and clarity. Intellectual clarity like I'd never had on dope.
Right.
Like I'd smoked dope.
Yeah.
But cocaine was it's just a good clean cocaine. It's just pure.
Yeah.
Just pure. And I mean, I got an addictive personality in a lot of things, but it never hooked me.
Right.
Just something I'd always give or take.
Yeah.
It's just such a lovely, clean.
When you say clarity, like, can you describe that?
An uninterrupted cleanliness of thought in like what you're thinking about. You can focus on and solve problems and
Right.
stops the meandering.
Mm-hmm. So is that sort of like in today's world, probably the closest thing you have to that is your Adderalls and your, dexamphetamines and stuff like that?
I don't know because I've never done any of those things.
Probably a good thing.
Yeah, I've
they're
never done
pretty
any of those
cooked.
things.
I mean, okay. So anything else? Like, what was the hardest drug that you ever did?
Cocaine, MDMA, ecstasy, and that's about it.
That's it.
Never touched the supposed hard stuff.
Yeah, supposed hard stuff.
Never touched it.
Why supposed?
Well, I don't know that it ever.
Okay.
I didn't try it, so I don't know what it's like.
Right, I was just wondering if you had like some weird theory that heroin's good.
No weird theory.
Yeah, it's all right, mate. It's all lies. The government's lying. Okay, cool. So, sex, drugs, rock and rolls come around. You're gambling still in that point. You're still having fun there. All right. How much money are you throwing around in today's world? How much were you probably spending a week?
Today's money?
Yeah, back then.
Probably 10 grand.
10 grand a week on how much were you making?
10 grand.
Yeah, so it was just
huge money.
Yeah.
We used to get at regional management level. I used to get $7 an order that was written, and I had 700 kids out carrying bags on the streets every night.
Mm-hmm.
So like every night could be 100 kids out of the
Right.
1 in 7 kids would write an order.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be $700 a night. Then I got district manager overrides and sales manager overrides. And it was just massive amounts, uncountable.
Back in the day when you could make actual money
Buy
from having a job.
You buy a brand new luxury car with a week's pay.
Yeah, right. Okay. So that period's come and gone. Once you've left that job, where are you going to from there? Like what else?
Entrepreneurial.
Yeah, okay.
I realised then that I had a talent for making money and I should be working for myself.
Yeah.
I had been virtually as regional manager. I pretty much ran my own race,
Yeah.
but I decided then to step out.
So what'd you get into?
A whole lot of stuff. I
Yeah.
opened the first video rental store in Australia.
You did. You opened
Yeah,
the first
yep.
video rental store.
Yeah.
What brand was that under?
Video Biz.
Video Biz. Was that yours?
Yep, mine entirely. I opened 17 shops in 18 months and went broke doing it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why Blockbuster went. You just tapped out. real
Blockbuster
quick.
was just starting to come in.
Is that why you went?
Yeah, look, we got involved. That's a real long story. There was Betamax first, so
Yes.
we stocked up our shops on Betamax, then VHS, and we had to double the stock. We had to buy as many movies in VHS as we had in Beta. Then VHS slowly took over from Beta,
Right.
and it faded.
You had
So
a lot of stock
I had
there
a
as
lot of dead stock. We had security issues. I got barred from insurance because my shops kept. It was hot property. Video recorders and videos were hot property for the thieves, so they were breaking into my shops and stealing, and I had to bulk my security up. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was federal government legislation. Once again, they seem to want to fuck me over. They introduced an outlaw porn. And we didn't have a computer in those days. We had a little card for every video and a card for every customer, and we matched the two transactions. And when we went through the cards, we got given 3 months' notice that no more, you're not allowed to sell X-rated out of your shops, not allowed to sell or rent. They gave us 3 months to clean it out. And we went through our cards. Half our customers would come in and get a copy of Star Wars and a copy of Mickey Mouse for the kids, and they'd take home a porn for themselves.
Right. Okay.
And it was 50%. I'm going back 1978.
50% of the
50% of the population was taking porn out of my video shop.
They would be, mate.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and the government, in their wisdom, decided that they couldn't. This is another thing about adults being told what they can do by people that have no right to interfere. The government said you can't watch porn. Like, hello, what do they think? All those people are going to go and wank somewhere else?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, what do they think was going to happen?
Well, yeah, I guess that's the thing. But I mean, that's an interesting one. Why they would outlaw that? Because it's not like they're going to make. Like, obviously, with the gambling thing, they're missing out on tax.
Guess what the federal government did? Right. They outlawed it in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, and guess where you could still buy porn?
Oh,
bloody
Canberra. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay. So
sick.
Yeah.
So anyway, that fucked me. Then when they took 50% of my business away, I just shut 17 shops and walked away.
Right. Okay. So
$3 million
what
in a hole.
year is this?
78, 79, 80.
That's interesting because I know I studied film for a little bit, and I know that there was a period of time during the early 70s that, Australian film as such, I don't think many people realise this, but the Australian film industry years and years and years and years ago was huge. It was almost going to take on Hollywood because we had cinemas and the people that were making the movies here. It was
that's right.
It was huge, and then it took a bit of a dive in the maybe 50s, 60s when you had sort of the musical era, and that's when the golden era of Hollywood was happening. So over here, to combat it, they basically said in the early 70s you can have full frontal nudity in movies. It's why you've got all these. I don't know. I can't remember the sort of.
And you could borrow large amounts of money from the government for movie production.
Yes.
Things like Alvin Purple, which went down as a legendary Australian movie, was totally government funded.
Yeah. And then so that's right. I do remember studying this. The pendulum swung. So they were having all this nudity and that in these movies, and it was all sort of a free-spirited thing. And then people started to complain, and then it's obviously just got swung the other way. So you can't even sell. When did that? That's obviously changed again, hasn't it?
No.
Well, how come they can still sell porn in? I remember as a kid, I'd go to Video Easy and we'd be getting DVDs, and I'd take the fucking porn aisle to the way to.
I don't know, because once I got out of the industry, I didn't follow it. But as far as I know, they never came back to where you could rent an X-rated video out of a video store.
What is X-rated as opposed to R-rated?
Sex.
But there was these. I'm sure
R-rated is open.
Right.
X-rated. I beg your pardon. It was X-rated. We were still R-rated. We weren't allowed to sell. It was the porn, not the actual fucking, that we weren't allowed to sell or rent.
Sorry, I'm like obsessed over this this idea, but it's just the way that you said porn with such a p at the p. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So all right, you've given up on Video Easy because if they can't sell your porn anymore. Video Biz. Then after that, sorry, the light went out real fucking weird. Then, so after that, you've given up the video shops. Now what?
A bit of dabbling back into the direct sales industry with a few different products, and then ultimately the computer boom.
Right, okay.
And I opened a computer bureau in Sydney.
Right.
And did a whole lot of work for people that were just between being able to run a business and needing to invest the money in a computer system to run their business. So they were still working manual Kalamazoo systems. Right. So there was a gap in the market for the small business to dump their books on a bureau.
So you're selling the concept of using technology at this point. So you're getting into every industry sort of at a shitty time.
The paperless office, was a thing.
Right.
So then I got into I went to Japan and got a Sharp and Toshiba computer distribution and opened a chain of stores called the Computer Shop in Sydney, where I sold computers with a 10 meg plug-in external hard drive, which was more memory than you'd ever need in a lifetime.
Yeah, throw your porn on that.
Yeah, and we believed it. We believed that 10 meg was going to be more memory than you ever need because it hadn't been tested.
Yeah.
And we were taking handwritten stuff and putting it onto paper.
Mm.
So, and we sold that for a lot of money. Like we were selling first sold CPM machines before DOS.
Yeah.
Then we sold DOS, and we were selling a DOS machine with a printer with some very, very basic accounting software for $12,000. With the extra 10 meg plug-in hard drive was, I think, an extra $2,500. I forget, but something like that.
So you're making good money.
Well,
is that when you made the most money?
Probably.
Yeah.
I've made the most money quite a few times in different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what happened with the computer shop?
Just ran its race. They became, over the next 4 or 5 years, they became literally like white goods. You could walk into Hardly Normal and buy a computer.
So
it was no longer a specialist sale.
Yeah, okay. Right.
And small business owners realised they should have one.
Right.
Whereas we were out there trying to convert them.
Yeah, so the conversion's done and
the conversion's done. They become white goods. The margin's down to like less than $1,000 a computer. Didn't want to know.
See, it's good that you're self-aware, because this is a problem I have with so many businesses now, is there's so many out there that just aren't self-aware enough to just go shut shop or re-fucking do it, because it's
changes.
It's pointless now.
Everything changes, man. Things in my time, commercial careers need to be renovated every 5 years.
Yeah.
I remember back in the 90s, Harvard released a thing in corporate America, corporate middle management in America, and it was 3 months hire them, 3 months to train them, 12 months to peak them, 12 months to get peak performance out of them, and 6 months to move them onwards, upwards, or out.
That's a fucking spot on way of looking at it.
Onwards, upwards, or out. And that was either promote them to another level and get them to learn and go through the 3 months again, move them sideways and put them in a box, or sack them.
Right. Okay. So computer shops run its course. You've done that.
Yep.
Then what?
I decided that I had a story, and you've heard a little bit of it. So I started to document my story.
Yeah.
And I decided to become a business consultant and sell my story to others, along with these are some of the things you can do right, and this is what you certainly shouldn't do. You know, don't overextend your capital like I did with video shops. I should have opened 3, not 17. And all the way back, I was able to go back and say, these are the mistakes you can make. They'll send you broke. These are the good things you should be doing. I studied copywriting. I studied marketing demographics, which were just starting to come online, and you could get stats. Like I'd grown to that. I'd grown to my late 30s with nothing available on a computer. There was no such thing in that level. So I turned into a business coach and business consultant, and I evolved from Ross Hancock, private individual, to a business, to ultimately writing a lot of systems, small business management systems, and books on selling and books on marketing, and even as far as an online system in the late 90s for management of small business. And I sold it to licensed distributors, and I enabled my product and my systems to get into small businesses without my own effort being responsible.
Right.
So I had a network of distributors pushing my stuff
Pushing
in.
that out there. And you just made residual income.
Made residual income, yeah.
Right. Anything else after that point?
Oh, look, that I got involved in so many businesses because of that, because I'd go in and I'd see their problems. And I mean, I had I had to make a rule with my missus that I would never invest more than 20 grand in someone's business without telling her.
Yeah.
Because over the time I burnt lots of money.
Right. Just throwing it at people.
Just throwing it at people.
Yeah.
That buying a bit of equity, but trying to save them when I couldn't.
So this is interesting because we're living in a now. I don't know if I'm not sure of how aware you are of this, but the whole entrepreneurial things, it's way in. It's rock star shit. Like that's what everyone's doing now because it's a whole new era. See, my parents, and I suppose for most of us in this room, my parents were born obviously a bit after you, where it was you get a job, you leave school at grade 10 or something like that, and you go out and you get a job. If you're not going to go be a lawyer or a doctor, you'd go to university for that, obviously. Get a good job so you can make enough money to please the banks, to get a house, and then that's sort of the way, and, retire, and then that's sort of it. This whole computer thing's happen. The internet's come about. A bunch of people have made some money in the .com era, and then you've got then your Mark Zuckerbergs and all these other people. And now you've got this area where, were you good at school academically? Were you a good student? No,
I was a shocking student, but I was very smart.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So now you have all these people that are, that were, born in our era that probably weren't the greatest at school in terms of I fucking hated the curriculum. I hated the idea that there were rules. I hated the fact that I had to wear a hat when I left the classroom, and it was such a stern thing. If you don't wear your hat, you're going to get detention. And to me, that was just like the way that I saw school was, and this is literally how I looked at it back then. I remember describing it to the principal at the time because I was so fed up with being taken to the principal's office all the time. And I was a school captain as well. Like at that point, I was one of the top people there. And so I'd always end up in his office and I'd say, this is like you guys are training me to just be a citizen in society, and that the teachers are the police. Then you've got the heads of department that are like the detectives and the people that are a bit higher than that. Then you've got sort of the deputy principals, which are your feds. And then on top of that, the principal is the fucking government. And we're walking around here, and for 12, 13 years of our life, we're just getting this thing in our head where you just got to keep following the rules, just obey. And then they throw you out there, and the one thing they never taught me, and this is thank God for Zach coming into my life, the one thing, my one obligation, no matter how much of a dumb cunt you could be, no matter how fucking stupid you are, the one obligation you have to society when you turn 18 is you have to pay tax. And they don't tell you a fucking thing. Zero. Nothing at all. So I'm like, is there a theory? Why are you setting everyone up to fall into the trap? Why? Like, I even did business studies and it skimmed over really quickly. Why? Why are they trying to fuck everyone up? And who do they work for?
They've got an unsolvable problem, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Like two things. Entrepreneurship has never changed. Like when I can, braggingly talk about making 10 grand a week in my mid-20s, kids today are making that sort of money and more, in their mid-20s. That's the way it is. That's never changed. There's always going to be an entrepreneurial wave out there. It came through the dot-com era. It came through the manufacturing era. It's happened all the way through.
But it's really big now.
Yeah, and it was big then.
But it's.
Well, but that's the times. Times have changed. I mean, they were, like, wind it back pre-computer, and computers changed everything. Internet changed everything. So there's a lot of stuff that I've had to cope with and never did. But I think why is they've got infrastructure that they need to bring in to cater with a growing population. They've got almost a given right now for everyone to have a car the moment they're old enough. So we've gone from an era of your parents and my parents and me that one car per house was the go. Now you have houses, you can drive out into the suburbs of the Gold Coast tonight and see house after house after house in the street with 4 or 5 cars because they've got mum and dad and 3 kids, right? So they've got infrastructure to build for transport systems, road systems, right? They've got to get the tax from somewhere, right? So they can't make it voluntary because people wouldn't pay. They can't do what we did in the feudal system and go around and hold a gun at people and said, give me your taxes. So they get an unfair system in that's non-compatible. You can't have anything, you can't argue with it. You were just assessed.
Are they wanting to fool people into paying as much as they possibly can by not really teaching them?
No, I don't think so. I think there's plenty of publicity out there about the fact that you can avoid taxes by certain, totally legal loopholes, and you should never evade them. Like if you evade them, you're doing wrong and you're criminally liable. If you avoid them, you're clever. I think Kerry Packer...
I know the clip that you're talking about.
The Packer and Turnbull thing, he said, look, my accountants find holes in your legislation, don't blame me, fix the holes.
Yeah.
And he said, I've never ever evaded my tax, but I have avoided it wherever you've left me a hole.
Yeah.
And I think that still goes on.
I think it should. I mean, one of my life goals, I've told it to Sam here before, one of my life goals is to be on a fucking yacht in, Mykonos or somewhere fucking ridiculous like that and be wanted for $150 million in tax money, and I call up Fairfax and go, hey, I'm here, I'm going to be here at this date if you want the photo, and me naked on a yacht going like that to be on the front of the fucking paper. The
other way to look, I had a mate that his ambition in life was, after he'd minimised his tax, avoided it wherever he could, his ambition in life was to pay them $1 million tax, because he reckoned any year, after he'd reduced it as much as he could, any year he gave them $1 million was a tip and a thank you, like keep building the roads, boys.
That's a nice way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah. And he died very wealthy.
Yeah?
Yeah, he died too young, but he died very wealthy.
Right, okay. Yeah. All right. So for, anyone out there that's watching now, a lot of people that watch this are sort of, in their 20s, maybe a bit younger. A lot of the people that we're meeting out, again, like there's this entrepreneurial thing where, there's drop shipping, which is, I suppose they're businesses for people that are, I personally think they're good businesses for people. Do you know what dropshipping is?
Yes, I do. I have a dropshipping business.
Oh, you do? Yep. So I think they're great to play around with, and you can make some really good money in it, and it's a great entry point. If you don't really know what you do, there's no real loss on anything. You just have to figure out how to build a website, and then you've got all these other different things. So what would, I guess, what's some words of wisdom for a kid out there right now that's going, all right, I want to do this, 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 but I want to do it on my accord. But I've got my parents telling me I've got to go to university. I've got teachers going, I've got to go to university. I've got to do this, I've got to do that. I can't do... How do you stop the noise?
Well, I think you just got to go back to the application of basic principles. A lot of small businesses are started without proper thought, no proper demographic research, no proper marketing plan, no proper business plan, undercapitalised, capitalised on a dream. They open a shop and they spend all their money, and the first week that they don't get a flood of customers, and they go, we didn't make any money, we're broke, because they don't have reserve capital and investment capital. So I think have a structure, do your research, make sure you've got the right amount of capital, and make sure you've got a business plan that fits with whatever capital you've got.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you don't extend yourself beyond what growth you should have,
Mm-hmm.
and get it right. And if you can dream and scheme and get backers and give up equity to get your capital to take a huge dream to reality, give up a piece of the action. Don't try and do it on your own.
Yeah, so that's another thing, is that there's so many of these, it's sort of glorified almost like porn, where you've got these self-made entrepreneurs, which, I don't know if they necessarily exist as such. So was there anything that you ever built that wasn't with a team?
No.
You need a team, don't you?
Yeah, you need a team.
Yeah.
I've always talked about a henchman.
Mm-hmm. I like that word.
Every entrepreneur needs a henchman.
Right.
And my henchman is still my best mate. He's been my henchman for the best part of 50 years.
Right. What is a henchman?
He's the bloke that runs behind the entrepreneur,
right,
and picks up the pieces. The entrepreneur's running from out the front, doing deals, doing loose deals, tidy that up, fix that up. But the henchman's understanding. He sits in those meetings, and he becomes, let my people talk to your people, because I'm moving on to talk to the next person.
Right. Okay. So
the two henchmen will then piece the deal together.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a two henchman deal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got to go
and,
like
and
that.
the henchman then needs a henchman.
Yeah.
And, because they outgrow you.
I love this word. I'm getting off on henchman.
Damn! My henchman, my best mate still today, has outgrown me.
Right, yeah.
He is now smarter than me.
Right.
I mean, we would have an argument about that. But he's come through 6 years behind me, so he's been able to take the benefit of all my mistakes as my henchman. We've been able to we've worked for each other, with each other, alongside. We've had partnerships. We've done all sorts of entrepreneurial stuff. And he's now got himself a henchman.
Right.
Right? Because I've outlived my usefulness to him. I mean, we still joke about it. I'm 72 now. He still comes to me every month. Mm-hmm. With, can you help me write this copy, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. So I still get asked for my opinion, but I'm no longer the front runner in it. He is.
Right.
So he's got...
Do you think that's also because you maybe don't have an interest anymore in being the front? You've done enough front running?
Yeah, it's got a bit. I mean, I enjoy... I'm busy relaxing and busy enjoying my life now.
Yeah.
But I still dabble in a whole lot of things.
Yep.
I've still got ex-clients that come back to me for advice.
Yep.
A lot of my licensees have become my friends. A lot of my ex-licensees have become my friends. I still talk to them on a reasonably regular basis. So I'm still pretty much involved.
What are you What are your hands dabbled in now?
What am I dabbling in now?
Yeah.
Oh, just counsel with different associates, ex-licensees in some cases, blokes that clients that I've formed relationships with, like a 20-year-old here on the coast who's now 42 with his own family that still comes to me for counsel and advice and where to go. So, and he's in IT, obviously IT. In fact, a lot of it, as you said, has gone to IT-related entrepreneurship. So, and I don't have a strong IT understanding. Like I'm a kind of dinosaur, but I can take the information in, and I can certainly put a commercial overview on it.
Yeah,
and that's never changed.
It's never going to die.
Never changed.
You've got all these grand plans. I've met so many people that have these amazing ideas, but just wouldn't know fucking $2 of how to make it happen.
That's right.
There's so many times that me and Sam have met people and they've come to us with this idea about a great app or something like that, and you're sitting there, you're talking to them, and you sort of give them an idea, and then you find out a few weeks later that that's what they're running with now.
Yeah.
But you just go, they're never gonna be able to get it off the ground because there's this idea that you just find an investor. And then the investor gives you money, and then magically this thing appears, and everyone loves it.
It all happens without the energy.
But it's the small thing, and that's what we've found out here. Like, we're running a bunch of different things out of this room. As you walked in, I said, it's a sweatshop in here. We've got a marketing company over here. We've got a talent management group. There's a fucking screen printer over there for t-shirts. There's 1,000,001 things happening. You can do 1,000,001 things, can't you? You don't have to stick to one thing. Yeah. Because we're killing it fucking all.
Well, you should be.
Yeah.
And you should be doing lots of things, because nothing is going to last forever.
Yeah.
Like, everything changes.
Yeah.
And in my lifetime, legislation has fucked me over a few times, right? Just things that had nothing to do with me. Someone changed a rule, and whatever I was doing at the time got tipped on its head. So you never know when that's going to happen.
Right.
You never know. I don't know what the next wave will be. I shudder to think. And I really do ponder if what I can observe in my lifetime, in the 55 years since I turned 17, if what I can observe in terms of the change of the way society operates, the style, there was not even TV when I was a little boy, and I look at the kids of today. What is it going to be like in 50 years? What is the world going to be like in 50 years? And I've got no idea. I've watched this thing go so rapidly in the last 10 years with, I wrote books on marketing in the 90s that included nothing about social media and nothing about internet marketing. It didn't exist. Now the world can't exist without it.
No. So we obviously have a marketing company here, and that's where we sort of make our main profit from. And our advantage is we grew up in it. We're not really... The funnest thing for us to compete against is traditional advertising agencies that have gone, oh, fuck, TV, and that's dying. Now we have to do digital, and all they employing is the same blueprint that they used on digital into these different platforms. And it's amazing to sit there and watch, because we look at it and we just both know intuitively how an ad should be and how it should look, and where it's supposed to be placed on a certain, what part of the real estate is this thing going to sit on. And you look at what these other companies are doing and you just go, who gave them that much money to be allowed to do that? And the thing is, though, is that because we're just starting, because we've only been around for a little bit, the game for us is getting the foot in the door. So we're undercutting everyone. We are promising the world because we know we can deliver on it. It's just that taking the hit on the chin, taking the hit on the chin, taking the hit on the chin. And then when we get the money, which we've just sorted out a few pretty good deals, it just goes straight back into here. And, we're both still broke.
Yeah, of course. And you'll be that way for a while. I mean, I'm a copywriter. I studied copywriting as part of that parcel of stuff that I did for business. And I just look at ads and I go, who in the fuck wrote that copy? And why would they spend their money on that? Why would they use it? It's shocking. It's got no call to action. It's got no attention-grabbing opener. It's got no benefit-laden body copy. It just breaks all the three most basic rules just in that, let alone all the other minor rules that you have to make copy work. And they spend thousands and thousands of dollars without marketing testing it. They just write this copy and blaze away whatever the corporate budget is on stuff that, they hope works.
See what happens.
Yeah,
right.
Without following the rules. So.
Okay, so... What was one thing that you got into then? I like this business side. I like this sort of stuff. What was one sort of thing that you got into? Which was your biggest fuck up? Where was your biggest fuck up business where you went?
The video biz.
Right.
The video business was. Is
that just because you got into it at a time where there's
I got
VHS
into it. You can tell a pioneer by the arrows in his back.
Yeah.
I was the pioneer.
Right. Okay.
And I copped all the arrows.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's an interesting one.
Yeah. And I copped the whole beta to VHS thing. I copped the legislation thing. I just copped I was out there pioneering in an industry that hadn't existed till I started.
Right. Yeah.
I'd been to Hawaii and seen the first video shop in Hawaii, and I'd come back and decided to start up.
What was that like, seeing that, like that moment? Because it obviously was a bit of a revelation. We went, fuck, we need these in Canada.
Yeah, look, I was with my wife
and
on a holiday, and we saw it and went, fuck, we've got to go back and do that, It was just a thing. I can't remember the precise thought, but I remember we knew it. We talked about it, and we knew enough that we had to come back to Australia and do it.
Yeah. For anyone watching, one of the cameras died, so you're just being slowly transported around. But all right, what did your wife pass away, or?
My wife passed away 5 years ago last month.
Right. Okay. And how was that for you?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long were you together for?
40 years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Geez, you just don't hear that anymore.
No. Yeah, look, she got cancer. She was a smoker. She'd never give up. And I used to ask her, please stop smoking. And she'd say, if I had a bit of dope in it, you'd smoke it. So because we always spiffed our joints. And she was right. So whilst I claimed I was a non-smoker, I was always still getting my little dose of tobacco because all my joints were laced.
Right.
And she got lung cancer, and she was a tiny girl. She got lung cancer. She died in 18 months from diagnosis to gone.
So how old was she?
63.
63. Jeez, how long was she smoking for? Whole life?
All her life, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't stop.
Right.
And it got her.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, she took it on the chin.
Right.
She took it on the chin. She just said to the doctors, "Hey, look, you know, I gambled, I smoked, I lost,
Yeah.
and copped it." But
Right.
it left me a mess. I'm still a mess.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think your soulmate is your soulmate, and I was lucky enough to get the perfect one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, bit of a battle at 67 when she goes away.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm here and I'm smiling, and
Yep.
Things are good.
Yep. And you
And
having
I still get passionate about things.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got almost like another lease on life, and you're having a bit of fun now. It's time for
It's
that.
kind of a freedom. I had a good chat with my cousin, and I said there can be no benefit of Maria going early, but the one thing that I've got out of it is I don't have to ask anyone, permission to do anything. I don't have to tell anyone where I'm going. I'm totally.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to wander the world at my age as a total free agent.
Yeah.
With total wings. I own nothing. You know, I've got no furniture.
Yeah.
I've got a car. I don't own a house anymore.
Yeah.
So
you're in a share place at the moment.
Yeah,
nice house by the water.
Flatting in a house. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's that like?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How old are the other people that live there?
27 and 40, 27, 43 and 72, sharing a house.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's a TV show, mate.
Yeah, it is.
Get Charlie Sheen on that shit.
I've even got written on a list of things to do, write a script for a TV show.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's that dynamic like then?
It's brilliant.
Yep.
It's brilliant. Yeah, we...
What do you talk about? Is it business related?
Strongly musically driven.
Right, okay.
A lot of music in the house. There's always music.
Yeah.
The house is never ever quiet.
Yep.
There's music all the time. We talk about sociality. We're all poker players.
Mm-hmm.
We are all trading online in some form or other.
Mm-hmm.
So we share strategies and bits and pieces for doing that.
Right.
And we joke a lot and laugh a lot.
Yep.
And have a lot of good shit going on.
Is everyone in the house pretty self-made?
Yeah.
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 So you've got three free spirits in there.
Three free spirits in the one house.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of creation that goes on.
A lot of creation, lot of mirth.
Yeah.
A lot of laughter.
Yeah.
And some good deep discussions, political and otherwise. You know?
Okay. Let's go into politics then, for a bit, if you want to.
Yeah.
What I'm interested to see how you... Is this recording? What's going on?
I just ran out of fucking...
Alright, we'll just fucking leave it. Don't worry about it. No, what's the point? So political wise, do you see yourself leaning in any direction? Where do you sit?
No.
No.
I'm apolitical.
Do you? Yeah. Okay.
I'm a right wing. I'm right wing extremist. I'm not quite at the.
You're a right wing extremist.
Extremist. You know.
You are.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Describe what that means.
It means everyone should be. In my view, everyone should be responsible for themselves. I don't believe in the nanny state.
Mm-hmm.
I got no time for it.
Yep.
And we started out with the fact that they can tell me at 72 years of age that I can't play poker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, leave me alone.
Right.
They can tell me some big, fat, ugly judge with a red nose and been pissed up the night before that eats shit and doesn't look after himself can put me in jail for smoke and dope, and yet I've got to look at him and say, yes, sir, no, sir.
Would you
Not
say
on,
you're
mate.
more libertarian then?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you say right wing extremist, they're going to think you're some fucking.
Oh, no, I'm not a
Nazi.
Hitler. I'm not a Hitler. I just believe that, I don't believe in the nanny state, and I really do feel that we should, all take responsibility for our own lives. And I think there's far too much of people sticking their noses into other people's lives and interfering, where people should be allowed to, have their own devices.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, absolutely. So, probably over your lifetime, you've seen. I mean, obviously the. American politics is world politics. That's what it is. I mean,
It's a joke.
I don't really look at Australian politics at all because I think it's sort of redundant and it doesn't affect anyone or anything other than the people that live here. But you know where the policies are coming from.
Well, I make it observationally, Josh. Aside from being fucked over by legislation by both sides of the political spectrum in my commercial career, I don't ever recall that a change in government has changed my life in any way.
No, that's it.
Like the government changes and legislation changes and you can do things that you couldn't do and you can't do things that, but nothing's ever happened that slowed me down or or change my life, other than the legislation
Right.
stuff that affected the businesses I was in.
Right. So what do you think of Trump then? How does that play out for you? Like, I mean, you saw Reagan, and I
Yeah.
mean,
I'm sitting on the fence. I mean, I've kind of sat on the fence ever since he stood, because I admired what he'd done commercially, albeit with his father's money. I watched him fight the system. I mean, I don't know whether you know, but he built a casino in Vegas.
I know the whole.
And they stopped him.
Yeah.
He's the only bloke to ever build a casino and a hotel in Vegas, and they never gave him a license.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That was just the gang. you
Yeah.
know,
The mob.
The
Yeah.
mob
Mafia.
ganging up on him.
Yeah.
So he's fought through that.
Yeah.
He somehow got himself elected as so-called leader of the free world. But you got to admire some of the shit. Like, he's gone and confronted Korea and Russia, which, his predecessors of 4 or 5 generations didn't do. So maybe he's on a secret of smoothing it all down.
Right.
I'll wait.
I sit on the fence with it as well. And I mean, that's one of those things that you say to people, and it's a very, like, everyone thinks he's a racist. Everyone thinks he's this. Everyone thinks he's that. He's said some fucking outrageous shit. Of course,
yeah,
you can't throw that out the bus. But so did George Bush. So did a bunch of people. Probably not to the extent of grabbing a pussy, but I mean, I'm very, very sure George Bush has said some fucking awful things that didn't get recorded.
The one I love was when he shook hands with the Mexican president as he got back on his plane, and shook hands and said, "We are friends for life." And he got off the plane back in America and said, "Oh, he's a fuckwit."
Is this, who was this?
When he went
Trump?
only 6 months ago, after he was president, when he went to Mexico.
I do remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, he's all there, all lovey-dovey, and he gets off the road. Fuck him,
So do you think then, you said before, supposed, president of the free world. So here's my gripe with the whole thing. So I'm of the opinion, and I think this is an educated opinion to an extent, because I've always been fascinated by history, JFK, where that came from, the mobs, the mafias that have got those people into power, people that control the ports, people that control this, people that control the money. Like, how does that all lay out? And I sit back and I go, all right, well, if I think I know, not necessarily the answer, but I understand the framework in which these things take place, that on one hand of my brain, I like to romanticize with this idea that there's this Trump guy that's come in and he's thrown a brick through the window and he's got elected through the system, and he's this self-made man that's done all these different things. But on the other edge of the sword, when I look at someone like Hillary Clinton or someone like that, I go, the only way for her to get in is, they're playing a game, and she's, pre-chosen. Obama's pre-chosen. Like, they're all handpicked because they come through different groups and different societies.
Puppets, yeah.
Puppets to an extent, but I mean, they're all puppets because they're all working for one another. I'm sure that there's people that are puppets to Trump that are on the other side of the fence. So everyone's puppeteering everyone else, right? So I wonder, is it that there's two bigger groups outside of, outside of politics, something on a higher level, two groups that, say, control someone like a Hillary Clinton, and then someone that controls someone like a Donald Trump and chooses them, and then within that there's, like people...
Yeah. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's something like 10% of the richest people in the world have got like
1% of the money and all that. Yeah. Bernie Sanders doesn't shut up about it.
Yeah,
which at the same time, I'm not against. Once upon a time, I'd run around going, "Why everyone needs to pay their tax?" Blah blah blah. But at this point, I'm also not against the idea that these people had to get there somehow.
Yeah, and some of them have become wonderfully philanthropic, and some of the very, very wealthy musicians are doing wonderful things around the world with, saving, like Sting with his rainforest and others.
Oh, I think that's just bullshit, though.
Do you?
Yeah, I look at someone like Bono and think, I don't understand it. I don't understand someone like Bono that can run around doing one thing and then, happily sit down at a dinner with the same people that cause. It's like the UN runs this festival in New York in like Central Park where all these politicians and leaders and that get up in between each act and say, we've got to stop the war, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. Yeah. While at the same time, these are the people that are letting it happen and saying, yep, it's okay, you can go in there. Yep, this is peacekeeping.
Okay. But just take it back to the point of philanthropy from the wealthy to get the wealth spread again. Seems to be slowly happening. Now, that's part of what I said before about what's the world going to be like in 50 years, because we can't keep sucking it all to
Yeah.
the top. You know, it's eventually there's going
Almost
to be
gone.
anarchy.
Yeah.
If we keep going down the road, even in Australia, if we keep going down the road of a nanny state, there will eventually be anarchy, because there's no other way.
Don't you wish for that day, though? I'd love to see it. I'd love to
Well,
be an extremely rich person that helped funds it. Jesus Christ, that'll
well,
get
you
me
probably
thrown in a
will see it.
fucking-
I doubt that I will see it, because I don't think it'll happen quick enough. But you may. You know, and I don't know. I mean, it could have a whole. It's unknown, isn't it, what the outcomes could bring?
Is it happening now to an extent? That's the other thing with Trump. Is it happening now where you have a man that has had to go up against these people his whole life, and now he's in with them? You know, because there's a lot of talk that, you know, he's at real odds with the intelligence community, and that there's in a battle that's going on that people can't really see, and what we see with these tweets and all this stupid shit like that is all just these different fronts that are taking out. And
I don't know whether at layman's level we can ever understand or even begin to know the machinations of what's going on behind the scenes. I mean, it can't be right. I agree with you that it can't be right, but I don't know what the outcomes are, or what, you know, what sinister.
So you were alive, obviously, when JFK was shot.
Yeah, I remember where I was when I heard he'd been shot.
Yeah. So what's that like?
It was kind of a shock. It was a culture shock thing of the time.
Yeah.
You know, that they could actually shoot an American president.
Yeah.
And I remember where I was when I heard it. You know, and it just it was a culture shock, but we moved on. You know, we just moved on.
What about something, so like in a similar vein to 9/11, is that the same sort of cultural shock?
Yeah, I mean, that was more, you know, you really just wanted to fuck them, like, fuck the bastards, how can they do that? Like, you know, why do that and just take down innocent lives the way they did? That seemed a bit different.
So it's interesting, because I remember that day, and I remember watching it on TV. I was really, really young, but obviously very vivid image that you see. And you go back sometimes and you look at the footage, and the footage is looking old now, which is amazing, because you go, fuck, that's actually a really long time ago that happened. And it's incredible. It's incredible. Like, I can't imagine that happening today. And it's going to happen again at some point. There's going to be another big thing like that. But the fact that that actually happened in the world is insanity. And the fact that there are plausible points to be made, not saying that this is what happened and that I subscribe to any theory as such, but there's plausible inconsistencies that don't fit the narrative of a bunch of cavemen doing it, and that there's passports found at the bottom of the towers, and that there's just so many things that don't make sense, and that there was more people that made a benefit out of it than there were out of the lives. Like you said before, you've been sent overseas as a kid, you know, 3,000 to 4,000 people dying on that day, as opposed to, it's fuck all, really, when we're talking about war.
It is, and America's always needed a war, and I mean,
Pearl Harbor
of all the theories underlying that, like, America needed a war. There was no one to go and fight, so they declared they had this. Let's have a war on terrorism, which is an unseeable enemy. Like, it's not Japan that we're going to go and fight. We're going to fight terrorism. So it's an unseen thing. So they get away with massive defence budgets and.
But it's amazing that, like, the one thing that I can't get over is we've got nuclear weapons. Like, if we want to win a war, we just win the war. It's really a very simple thing.
You'd think so.
So then I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Sorry, I'm going down my own little rabbit trap, but this is an interesting to talk to someone that's lived through this. Aliens and, like, this unbeknownst thing. So did you ever watch Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way that they wrote that was, or the theory that came from when the guy was writing it, was that eventually one day, obviously the world's going to get to a point where we've got this terrorism thing. It's coming to an end now. Like, they know they've been flogging the horse for a long time now, and at some point something's got to give. So when the United Nations runs everything, and there is that one world sort of oligarchy as such, which is, it's almost there. There's not many more places that we can go to once Cuba's taken and North Korea's done and that. Where do you go to?
Do we go and find
from
the
there?
aliens and pick on them?
But no, the theory is that there's no such thing as aliens.
Is that the theory?
The theory is that there's no such thing as aliens. That the aliens thing and the talk about it and everything, like, they would have shown themselves. There probably is. They're not fucking coming here. What's so important about us? You can't fucking put plastic bags in a fucking bin, right? We're banning fucking your poker. They're not interested in us. There's nothing to fucking learn. They've got spaceships.
You're getting way deep here.
I'm getting
Josh.
deep, but I'm fascinated to hear what you think. So what if? Because this is what they actually think's about to happen. Because Trump's just launched, literally, he's launched another part of the military, which is what's it called, the Space Force. You know this?
No.
You didn't know this?
No.
He announced, like, it was a major announcement that they're putting major funding into the Space Force, which is going to be the next.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's literally doing it. So it's the military, because they want to be the first in space that's running this whole thing. So they believe.
So what if they get out there and they run into the aliens coming the other way?
Well, no, but the idea is that what if they just false flag an attack? You know, destroy one random city like Chicago or something like that. Blame it on some fucking unbeknownst thing in the sky that we're never going to be able to find.
Alienism. Well,
Just
that'd follow the war on terrorism down the path, wouldn't it?
Well, it would. And then it's you just keep funding that
Makes
motherfucker.
some sort of sense.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
What
No,
do you say?
I don't either. But I don't.
Do you think I smoked a bit more dope than what you did?
No, and I don't rule it out. I don't rule aliens out. I don't know that we can be foolish enough to consider we're the only living thing in the universe.
What's one thing you'd like to know before you go? Not go from here, but just
Before I go off.
fuck off. Yeah.
No,
Nothing.
nothing comes.
No.
No.
Feel like you know enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I find things to want to learn about, but
Content.
Hmm?
Content. Would you say you are now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And mate, taxes and death are certain, and I don't really care how or when, as long as it's painless. Like I just want to every day at a time keep living the good life. Party hard, stay fit, stay healthy, party hard, and
Are you? Did you party hard?
Yeah.
What's party hard?
Oh,
Is it still sex, drugs, and rock and
yeah,
roll?
it's still sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
What a way to end it. You fucking mad cunt.
That's what you do. That's what it is. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll,
Yeah.
and that's the world.
Yeah, and look at you, mate.
I
like
don't
I said,
figure that's
at the
ever
very
going to
start,
change, mate.
You look fucking 11.
Yeah, I
That's
still do live gigs, mate.
Really?
Rarely
Music?
a week that I don't go and do a live gig.
Right. Do you sing? Play guitar?
No, just love listening and dancing.
Oh, you go to a live show?
Rarely I don't.
Right, good. I'll probably be playing in Emerald next
Some
week.
months are like festival months are heavier than others. I do live shows, but yeah, I like live music,
Good on you.
drugs, rock and roll, girls.
Yeah. You're an animal, Ross.
Oh, I try.
Thanks for coming on the show, mate. I appreciate it.